Want more videos? Kindly like and subscribe. Nice guy feels cheated because I didn't realize he liked me. Hello. All throughout stay at home, I've been binge watching our nice guy stories and decided to post a story of my own. This story starts off in December, a little after my birthday. I had a party the week of my birthday and invited the star of the show, our nice guy, over to hang out with the rest of us. He told me that he wasn't able to make it but that we'd hang out another time. Cool, no problem. I told him that was fine and went to enjoy my birthday party. Flash forward a few weeks later, and me and our nice guy, let's call him Leroy, are messaging back and forth and formulating a plan. We finally settled on going to our local movie theater and seeing The Rise of Skywalker to make up for him not being able to come to my birthday party. The day comes, he picks me up in his beaten-up car, and we hit the road. At this point, me and Leroy have been friends for at least 3 years, so I trusted him. He told me that this outing was nothing more than a get-together to celebrate my late birthday, and I believed him because why wouldn't I? We arrived at the theater and we ordered our snacks and tickets. I told him that I had money and was willing to pay for at least my snacks, but Leroy told me not to worry about it. He told me that this was his treat and that it was my birthday present. He's a stubborn bastard, so I shrugged it off and thanked him for being kind. He bought me a slushie and one big popcorn for us to share. We watched the movie and had a fun time cracking jokes the entire time. Afterwards, he drove us to a nearby restaurant and said that we should go get some ice cream. So we did, and again, we had a fun time. I then went home and didn't really think about it since it was just an outing with a friend. About a month later, I went out with another friend who ended up being my current boyfriend. We ended up falling for each other very quickly, and a month after our date we started going out. Well, my boyfriend was actually Leroy's best friend, keyword being was, and Leroy didn't like us dating one bit. I actually didn't find out about this until April, but Leroy had feelings for me. I was taken aback by this since he had made no signs that he was into me. I just thought we were good friends. At first, I didn't really think twice about this since it really wasn't a big deal. I left it and carried on with my boyfriend like normal. Then, Leroy gets a girlfriend, let's call her Kat, and they seem to hit it off. They were together for about 5 months and then Kat broke it off due to some personal reasons. This comes into play later. After that, Leroy starts to take a turn for the worst. He ended up cutting Kat out of his life completely because he got pissed at her for a whole list of stupid reasons that we don't have time to get into right now, and then started punishing his other friends for being seen with her, including my boyfriend. This has been going on for at least 4 months at this point, and everyone is fed up with it. My boyfriend made a group chat to discuss how to go about this because this obviously can't go on forever. Recently, we all started talking about this situation, and a mutual friend of ours brings up how Leroy had feelings for me. But something about this caught my attention. Our friend said how Leroy *tched about how he felt cheated because I dated someone else. I told the group chat how Leroy never told me anything about having feelings for me and that I didn't even know about them until months later. I also mentioned our only outing being the movie night, so it wasn't like he was obviously dropping hints or anything. Then, Kat chimes in and tells me that Leroy told her how that night was a date. I said that he told me that it was just us hanging out to make up for missing my birthday and that he never once said that it was a date. She then explains how he went to her and told her how he took me on a date and then I went and dated my boyfriend instead. At this point, I'm livid. Not only did he lead me under false pretenses, but he also told anyone who would listen how I led him on and knowingly broke his heart and dated someone else just to hurt him. Suddenly, the way Leroy has been treating my boyfriend makes more sense. He's been pissy with him ever since we started dating in February and is still pissy with him now. Turns out, Leroy basically called dibs on me when we hung out way back in December and felt entitled to a relationship because he was nice to me. So when I dated his best friend, he felt like his girl was taken away from him since he liked me first. Finding out that someone who I thought was a very good friend of mine is a nice guy, borderline incel, was heartbreaking, but I'm certainly at my very best right now. My boyfriend and I are very happy together, and we're coming close to our 8-month anniversary together. Too bad if Leroy is mad because I couldn't be happier. Next story, nice guy story. It didn't end well. It didn't end well. A little over a month ago I got out of a relationship with a nice guy, and I looked back on it and realized it was a really toxic relationship. This may be a long one, so brace yourselves. I once dated the nice guy, who was also one of my childhood friends from elementary school. I had a crush on him for a little while. So it was really great when I found out that he felt the same about me too. It was an amazing relationship for a little bit until maybe a month or a month and a half into the relationship. After that he started to be somewhat controlling and told me that I was childish. I never realized that he was trying to change who I was until I got out of the relationship. He would also make very passive-aggressive comments towards me, and when I asked him what he said he would say nothing. Then he stopped being as loving and started to be somewhat cold towards me. Then a few weeks later he sent me a text saying starting insert month and day, we couldn't be together and that he had to focus on school. He actually set a date for our breakup. Now I'm not mad at the fact that he wanted to focus on school, I'm mad at the fact that he chose to actually set a date for him to break up with me as if our relationship meant nothing to him. Then he said that he could still take me to church if I wanted to after he said that. What the heck? Why would I want to go to church with someone who just said that they were breaking up with me on a certain day? So I told him that I understood that he wanted to focus on school but that I wasn't going to wait to be broken up with and that I was done now, and he said fine by me as if it were nothing to him. Then he actually tried to message me for a few days asking how I was doing but gave up after that and got me removed from one of the group chats we were in and got one of his friends to remove me from the other group chat. Although I was told that he didn't seem mad at me, sure he wasn't mad, sarcastically speaking. Then I realized he was a toxic douche who tried to seem like he was this great guy even though he was a passive-aggressive and controlling jerk. I'm so glad that my family made me realize and that I got the hell out of that messy relationship. If you ever find yourself with someone who is toxic, get out of there ASAP. That is not love, that's them trying to manipulate and have power over you. Next story, nice guy. The innocent act. Nice guy acts innocent until I admit I no longer like him. Hi, this is my first post. This may not be as drastic as other stories, but this was my first nice guy encounter. It was my second week staying at home and like everyone else, I turned to social media to waste my time. A guy, let's call him Yikes, started following me on Instagram and liked 3 of my recent pictures. I liked 3 of his recent pictures back and didn't think much of it. A few minutes later he messages me. I didn't know him, but I saw another one of my friends, let's call her Warren, was following him, so I asked her if she knew anything about Yikes. Warren had told me that Yikes texted her and wanted them to start talking. Warren had a boyfriend at the time, so she let him know. Yikes got mad, claimed Warren had lead him on and lied to him, so he blocked her. A few months after, Yikes had unblocked Warren and started texting her again, but Warren didn't answer. I thanked Warren for her information and I thought, people change, so I replied and we began talking. Mistake number 1. After talking to Yikes for about 2 weeks, he began to ask me about relationships. I told him about my last one and said the famous nice guy words, well, I'll never treat you like that. He told me about his and I noticed he made each one of the girls he dated sound like horrible people, and at the time I thought Yikes was just unlucky with relationships. A week after that, Yikes told me he was talking to other girls even though we were talking in a possible relationship way. I forgave him and said it was okay since we weren't actually dating. Mistake number 2. Yikes partied a lot. Like every weekend and his friends possibly being sick, he partied. At one party, Yikes began to say some personal things that I will not mention, and I tried my best at being uplifting and supportive. Yikes blocked me. At the time I thought I said something wrong and took it that he got mad. The next morning he unblocked me and pretended as if nothing happened. When I asked him about it, he avoided the question. I never brought it up again and forgave him. Mistake number 3. We would no longer have conversations since he would just excessively compliment me. Which was nice at first but became annoying since I really just wanted to know about his day. So I texted him less and less. He would get mad that I wasn't texting him 24/7, and even though he would only text me when he felt like it. Yesterday he said that since I'm no longer showing interest, we should stop talking since we're both wasting our time. I appreciate how he was being mature on it and agreed. I thought Yikes and I would just continue as acquaintances, but nope, he blocked me again. I thought, oh well, and I thought that was the end of Yikes. I was wrong. This morning Yikes unblocked me and texted me once again to say that he still felt something towards me, but I obviously didn't. I went Yikes a very lengthy message explaining how I felt before I lost feelings and why I lost feelings, basically everything I said above. I also added that it was my bad for not bringing anything up. The only thing he took from that message was, "I don't like you complimenting me," to which he replied, "I'm sorry, I said you were important." I then told him that he didn't understand my message and that I didn't say that. Yikes then went on to say, "I like you but okay," and finished off with, "Good luck finding someone else, just don't complain when they treat you like crap." I laughed and left him on read. Thank goodness we never ended up dating. Edit. I took the advice and blocked him, but now he made another account to try and talk to me. Next story: pressure. Into dating a nice guy. Peer pressured into dating the nice guy. Hi everybody, this is my first post on Reddit. During having to stay in the house, I've spent loads of time watching Reddit videos on YouTube, so a little introduction. This story takes place a few years ago. My friends and I had just started our junior of school. I'd only been friends with them for a year or so, one of which was our nice guy. Let's call him MM, and I hadn't spoken much over my time in the group apart from a few awkward conversations at lunch. I wouldn't really call him a friend, more of a mutual acquaintance. By the start of school, a lot of people had hinted at me that M had a bit of a crush on me in sophomore year, but I didn't think anything of it. Big mistake. A lot of people joined our school in junior year, and among them was a guy called Lewis. He was put in my math class and we hit it off straight away. I don't want to sound cliché, but it was love at first sight. We had so much in common and he was so smart and funny. As he was new to the school, he decided to hang out with my group of friends and asked for my phone number. M didn't like any of this one bit. As soon as Lewis left, M exploded at me. M, hey op, what's so special about him that means he gets your phone number? Are you into him? Me, what? He's new and is trying to make new friends. Get off my case. M, well, if he's not special then I guess you'll have no problem giving me your phone number too? I didn't want to give M my number, but I also didn't want anyone to know I was starting to like Lewis. After he kept teasing me, I gave him my number. Later that night, I realized my mistake. M messaged me constantly, morning, noon and night. He'd always been kinda quiet, so I didn't expect him to text me so obsessively. He always wanted to know where I was or what I was doing. Every time I tried to stop replying he'd go crazy, saying that he needed to know where I was to make sure I was okay. The only time I got any peace was at school, especially around Lewis. Whenever he showed up, M would go silent and just glare at him for hours. Lewis and I usually sat together and had our own conversations, even holding hands occasionally. M hated it. He asked me if I was gonna date Lewis, and I said it depended on whether or not Lewis was gonna ask me out. This gave M a very bad idea. Although M had been silent around Lewis before, now he was like a bodyguard. He insisted on walking me home, sitting next to me all the time and going to every party I was invited to. He didn't want to give Lewis the chance to talk to me, but Lewis was still pretty open that he liked me. Then one day M snapped. He asked me to go with him to town for an emergency. He sat me on a bench and told me that he'd been in love with me for a year, and that all our awkward conversations had meant so much to him and he thought we had a real connection. He also said that my mental health issues, I was dealing with depression and anxiety, were hot, which really offended me. I told him I appreciated him telling me, but I wasn't interested in him. I told him that he needed to stop following me around and texting all the time. He stormed off, and I didn't see him until a few days later. Over the next few days I tried messaging Lewis, but he didn't seem to want to talk. Eventually, he said he didn't want to see me anymore and that he didn't like me. I was crushed. I tried talking to my friends, but they told me I should have given M a chance. M, unsurprisingly, was an ass about the situation, giving it all the usual, nice guy, crap. I would never treat you like that. You're a queen, you deserve better. Not all men are like him, I'm different. All my friends seemed to agree with him, that M was the best option for me. Eventually, they started getting more threatening, telling me that if I didn't at least give M a shot they didn't want to be friends with me. I know, they're terrible friends. I gave in, and M arranged a date. My first date was horrible. It was at a crappy burger place in our town. M spent the whole night talking about himself. The only time he gave me a compliment was on saying that my boobs looked good in my dress. I regretted going as soon as I left the house. I knew I wasn't over Lewis and I knew that I'd been pressured into going on the date. At the end of the night, I tried to walk home alone, but M grabbed my face and kissed me. I was horrified. It took all my power to not have a panic attack right there. He grabbed my arms, holding them to my sides, and told me he was going to walk me home. I felt so relieved when we got to my house. I wanted to forget the night forever. As I went to say an awkward goodbye, M invited himself in and pulled me straight to the sofa. I asked him why he wasn't going home, but he said he had a surprise planned. I had no choice but to follow as he dragged me to sit next to him. As soon as I did, he pulled me on top of him and began groping me and kissing me again. I tried to scream into his mouth and push him away, but he kept grabbing at me. He only stopped when he heard someone in the hallway. I told him to get out of my house. I didn't want to see him again. M and I never went on another date, but I still had to see him. My friends couldn't understand why I didn't want a second date. He'd told them that it had been a huge success. I began to cut off my friendships with them. I threw myself into schoolwork and therapy, and eventually recovered from depression. The M thing was a huge setback. I decided not to tell anyone about it. All my friends had known him forever and thought he was a great guy, and it was his word against mine. M contacted me about it, and said I shouldn't be mad at him because he deserved to do that to me because he'd liked me for over a year. I blocked him on everything. A few months later, I ended up getting back in touch with Lewis. He'd heard that I'd had a really tough time with the group and we started talking again. Apparently M had made everyone kick him out of the group, and had told him that M and I were a couple so he had to stay away from me. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that M had lied. I told Lewis what had happened to me with M and he supported me. We started dating about 2 years ago and we've been together ever since. I'm now in a different city, but I've been home to be with my family during this time. I saw him a few days ago in town. Apparently these days he refers to me as that depressed B*TCH, and tells everyone I led him on. Considering he likes to act all tough, he turned and walked the other way down the street to get away from me. As for me, I'm much happier since I got rid of him. Hopefully he will be my last encounter with a nice guy who's that evil. TL. Dr. Nice Guy in my friend group gets jealous when I meet a new guy, becomes obsessed with asking me out first, tells the new guy that I'm already his girlfriend and then assaults me after a terrible date. Next story 1. Night with a nice guy. 1 date with a nice guy. Hi there. I gave the nice guy a chance. This happened a few years ago. Here's the cast, names changed for obvious reasons. J, me Nathan, my coworker Eric, nice guy mom, my mom. I had been working at some crappy rich person flip-flop store for several months now, and I hated it. We had tons of entitled people come in, but that's a story for another subreddit. Nathan was fairly new, but had put in his 2 weeks due to the fact that our manager sucked. We would work 8-hour shifts with no breaks, and none of us were trained properly. Also, we weren't allowed to sit in the store or buy stuff before our shifts. Which is confusing because you aren't allowed to sell stuff to yourself in retail. It was a busy day, and I was getting off the morning shift. Shifts rarely overlapped, but thankfully Nathan's shift overlapped with mine that day. He was the only coworker I actually liked while I was there. The shop eventually slowed down, and I was just kind of chilling. We talked about how I had a date after my shift. I was on one of those sites that targets itself as a friend-making app, but really everyone is there to go on dates. I wanted to be a rebel and go on a date with a guy in his early 20s to tick off my parents. Once my shift ended, I waited around a little while, which broke store rules, but I was close to quitting, so I honestly didn't care. Nathan didn't care either. That's when our nice guy enters the story. Eric had walked in and I stood up to greet him. Jay? He asked. I got up and smiled. You must be Eric. I went to shake his hand, but he hugged me instead. It was a little weird, and I was a little uncomfortable, but I went along with it. Nathan ended up waving goodbye to me as we left. Eric didn't really show much interest in my personality that day. I took him to Indigo, a Canadian bookstore, and showed him some of my favorite books. I was checking out classics like the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Divine Comedy, etc. I even looked at some manga, as I am a fan of manga, and graphic novels. I had a feeling while I was browsing, that he only wanted to get in my pants. While I was looking at some graphic novels, I forgot how this came up, but he did something and I called him cute. We went on, and I'm pretty sure whatever happened wasn't what's meant to happen on a first dates when you want to take things slow. Eric ended up taking me into an aisle and forcing me to kiss him, and ended up grabbing my butt. I was rather confused and gasped a little in surprise, which caused him to pull away. I like cuddling and hand-holding, but making out in public is not my thing, especially when I just met the person. Oh, did I startle you? Eric asked with a sly smile. Yeah, sure. I smiled a bit. We ended up dropping that subject and just walked around the mall. I asked for his opinion on some outfits I tried on, but he didn't really say anything. We ended up waiting for our buses together and went out separate ways. I didn't really trust him, and my gut gave me a bad feeling from him, so I stopped talking to him. A few days later, however, I was rather confused when he texted me out of the blue. Hey, I was wondering if I could pick you up tonight and we can go for a drive maybe. It was 12 a.m., and I had a math test in the morning, so I told him as much. Hey, sorry, I can't. I have a big test in the morning. Which was true, but he didn't believe so. You're just saying that because you've never had S**x. I had told him that I had never been with anybody when we first started talking because he asked, and he seemed chill and didn't say anything more, but now it was as if he was trying to guilt me into being with him. I ended up not replying, which was funny because after that text, he blocked me. Like, okay buddy. I think I saved myself a lot though, because honestly I think I would have been attacked if I was to go with him. Want more videos? Kindly like and subscribe.